Well, let's move on and now talk about another interesting topic, and that is delisting. Vodafone Idea, Vedanta, Adani Power, as well as Hexaware. The commonalities between the shareholders of these three companies is that the promoters of these individual companies have been mulling delisting. Delisting essentially means taking the company private. When I say private, it still remains a publicly held company, but it will not be listed on the exchanges. And that means liquidity in the shares will obviously deplete to close to zero. So if you are holding the shares of these companies, you're not going to be able to sell it very easily at all. On the exchanges, it's out of the question. Now, why is it coming at this time? Is because share prices have fallen, the markets have fallen. Promoters are perhaps trying to find an opportunity in buying the shares from the public, if they of course do have the cash or are able to garner up the cash and take the company private. Remember, taking a company private does tend to give the promoter, the management, a lot more freedom, a lot more flexibility in operating their company. But we of course are going to tackle this question from a shareholder point of view, from a minority shareholder point of view. Think about it. You're a Vedanta shareholder, you may be a long-term investor, you may have bought the shares at 300, 150, 190, etc. And now you have Mr. Anil Agarwal, you have Vedanta Limited offering you just 80 or 90 odd rupees for the share to take it private. What are the options before you? Let's take this conversation forward with Mr. Anil Singhvi of Ican Investment Advisors. Mr. Singhvi, really a pleasure having you with us today on the Money Show. You know, we've had Vedanta, whose board has approved the delisting. Adani Power is in the works. Hexaware is in the works. For the shareholders of these companies, what is next? The board node will of course come through for these companies. What's next though? What can the shareholder expect, the minority shareholder?
Draw your attention to when you said that board has approved. Actually, board has become more like a stamping office. As the promoters send this kind of a notice to the board that they want to, or they're proposing the company to be delisted, and board is just putting a stamp of approval. According to me, in all three cases, the board of directors and particularly independent directors have failed miserably in looking at why do the promoters want to really delist the company. The second question which I have is that all along, all shareholders, in fact, we use the word often in India, minority shareholders. Though many cases in India, promoters own either 25-30% of the shares, and the rest of the 70% shareholders are known as minority shareholders. I hate that term, minority shareholders. Who is the minority? The promoter. Who is the minority? How can board take the cognizance of just the promoter by calling the meeting of the shareholders? So according to me, the first goalpost should be the board, the independent directors, who should be looking at what price are the promoters really proposing to have a delisting. They all seem to be taking the shelter against the regulations, and regulations are saying that, okay, whatever may have been the price formula, basis that you make your first offer on that basis. But how can you call a shareholders meeting basis the lowest price point, which may have suited you because of the variety of reasons? Like now, the COVID is the reason, and you don't even look at independent investment bankers report, or you don't even call for independent investment bankers report to find out what the fair value is. So according to me, to very large extent, and again, we haven't seen the class action suits in India. I would love to have class action suits by the shareholders holding the independent directors squarely and solely responsible for it. Then why are they taking this kind of a proposal to the board, and why are they approving at the board level? First goalpost should be the board. They should not even approve this kind of proposals if they are not finding the fair value at the starting point. Because then you must have that what is the rationale for promoter to take it for delisting, and what premium he should offer. When a promoter wants to sell his company, he always asks for a premium control. Why is he not giving the control to premium control to the minority shareholder? Because he wants to become 100% owner. So this whole pricing formula, even by SEBI, is very one-sided. And all of a sudden, those who are partners in the company, because they are the guys who have provided the capital to the promoter and risk-bearing capital, that too on that basis, how on this proposal they are on the other side of the table? And what are independent directors doing? Favoring the promoters, whereas they should be favoring the minority shareholders to look at whether the offer price is a fair price or not. So according to me, the first thing should be class action suit against the directors, independent directors, who have failed completely in their fiduciary capacity to have protected the rights of the minority shareholders. The second question is that they must not approve this resolution at the AGM, at the EOGM. Whenever an extraordinary general meeting is called for, they should oppose this, because this is not the way that shareholders should be left to decide that what they need to do in terms of what the open market prices are. Because this is devoid of the independent valuer's valuation report on the basis of fair value. And the third is, if they fail in these two, that board has failed completely, even at the EGM, because many times the EGM, the shareholders are large shareholders like LIC, which has really not stood up to the minority shareholders, which is very unfortunate. In most cases, LIC has really not sided with minority shareholders in these matters of delisting, and have, promoters go and meet LIC, and LIC agrees at certain price, and at the end of it, according to me, LIC should be opposing all delisting. Why should they even agree on the delisting of such large cap companies? And the third important point which I have is that unless and until, and regulatory changes should be brought in India, unless and until promoters own 75% of the shares, they should not be allowed to even have a delisting. Because you can't imagine somebody owning 25-30% and he wants to delist the company just because it suits him at that point in time. Even if you have a large number of outside shareholders, they will not be able to vote, they may not even know. Because today the voting is such a is not a very lethal weapon used in corporate world. Many of the small shareholders don't even know about how to vote. So I think these are very important parameters which should be looked into. And third aspect, as I mentioned to you, if the offer price is not good enough, don't tender your shares.